Hey everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this book nook. Today I am sharing with you 11 upcoming and new release books for the last quarter of the year that I am excited for. That's a mouthful. I have no idea how to shorten it. I've got some books I'm excited to share with you. No doubt there are plenty more. I just really limited myself to 3 to 4 a month because my want to read list is already over 300 books and I just need to start being really picky with my books, as well as the fact that I'm in a real, I mean it's summertime in New Zealand at the moment. Have a quick look. Look at all that sunshine. Look at all that glare. So the books that I'm really interested in reading at the moment are very much sunshiny, light-hearted ones. I'm not really in the mood for any fantasy ones. I've got a few, but not heaps. So anyway, I'm rambling. I'm just going to get onto it. As always, the links for the books are down below if you want to add them to your own reading lists. Alright, I'll shuffle over so I can put the book covers here. The first book that I really want to read is called Roommate. And this is written by Sarah Wilson. It is an adult contemporary romance and it's actually kind of new adultish from the sounds of things. And if you wanted to narrow that field down a bit further, you could also count this as a chick lit. The kind of book I want to read laying out in the sunshine. So we follow Madison, and this is the real reason why I picked this up. Madison is a school teacher, just like myself, but she's feeling a little bit of financial stress. She's unable to kind of support herself in the place where she is living. So what she does is she becomes a roommate. What does that job entail? Essentially being a maid, packing up, tidying up after the home owner, and in this case the home owner is Tyler Roth. Tyler Roth, classic rich guy, accountant kind of fella who doesn't really see our main character as anyone except a poor teacher. But of course some sort of romance blossoms, and honestly I just want to be there for the ride of a kind of low-key enemies to lovers, because that trope I can never get enough of, and the fact that it's tied in with like my career, I need it in my life right now. The next 2 books are both out on October the 6th. This one you've probably heard of. It is a new V.E. Schwab book called The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. L-A-R-U-E, it sounds quite French. And this is another adult fantasy book of hers, but it is set in France 1714. So, as you might have guessed, we follow Addie. She's made a bargain to live forever, but the consequence is that no one will be able to remember her. So we follow her until one day, something like 300 years later, Addie meets a guy in a bookshop and he says that he can remember her. Dun dun dun! Anyway, the next 6th of October release is We Were Restless Things by Cole Nagamatsu. So this one, I have to admit, I was pulled in by the cover art to begin with when I was strolling through the websites, and it's a young adult fantasy contemporary, so I'm hoping it's not too intense on the fantasy side. But what is it about? Let me tell you. So this is Nagamatsu's debut novel. It revolves around this character called Link. Now Link dies and it is ruled a drowning. However, his friends understand that actually it's not quite as simple as that. He drowned in some sort of mysterious lake. So it's like a mystery. They kind of work together, figure out what's happening. Classic forest kind of setting. And the cherry on the cake, cherry on top. The cherry on top is that someone claiming to be the dead guy is contacting the friends. So who in the world know what's going on? Then October 13th, we have a feminist young adult contemporary novel called You Know I'm No Good by Jessica Ann Foley. And this novel just sounded like a bit more of a hard-hitting contemporary, one I can imagine myself really getting wrapped up in. So it follows our main character, and she is called Mia, or Maya, however you enunciate it, and her kind of deal is that she's a troubled teen, so things just aren't going well for her in life, and she gets moved away to a boarding school. It's a girls' boarding school in the middle of nowhere, and she is essentially going through that whole storyline of finding herself. But what made me add this to the list over other finding yourself stories is the last line that says it's a YA novel that examines the way society is stacked against teenage girls and what one young woman will do to even the odds. So I'm really hoping for some super strong female characters in a modern setting. I'm hoping it's realistic and that lots of young women out there can relate to this book, and as a flow and effect of that one, I can recommend to lots of my teenage female young women students. So that's it for October. Quickly moving into November. I'm trying so hard not to just keep warbling. We have White Ivy. This one is released on November the 3rd, and it is written by Susie Yang. And this is a contemporary thriller of the adult age genre, so really trying to mix up my young adult and adult this quarter. So we follow a main character called Ivy. Now Ivy, she steals things, she trespasses, she breaks the law, but she catches the eye of this dude called Gideon. He seems to be this well-to-do, has really good wealthy connections, but long story short, her mum catches her and ships her over to China. I should probably mention she was originally in Boston. So in China she does the whole growing up thing, and eventually it seems she makes her way back to Boston. Her connection with Gideon just racks back up. Racks? That is not the right slang. Riles, just ignites again. And what happens from the sounds of things is they connect, and Ivy gets her connection in there and starts going to all these fancy dinners and is fighting for not fame, but you know, a bit more than just enough. She's trying to better herself in the world of finances and popularity, until one day a ghost from her past resurfaces, destroys everything she has worked to build. I'm interested about this. Not because of the good girl gone bad or bad girl vibe. It's because it says directly in here, it is a coming of age story with insights into the immigrant experience, and it's those two words, immigrant experience, I want to make sure I'm reading more about. So that's why it's on my list. November 10th, Chasing Lucky. You've probably heard of this author before. Essentially, she does YA contemporary romances, and I picked this one up purely for the fact that I want to read it in one sitting, laying out in the sunshine amongst the daisies with an iced cold drink next to me. It's all for the vibe. I added this YA romance contemporary to my list specifically because I have read from this author before and enjoyed her easy flowing writing style, so I'm hoping this is, you know, a mirror of that. And the plot of this one is you have Josie, who is the good girl, you have Lucky, who is the bad boy. They run into each other after high school has, you know, finished. And what happens is they run into each other a few years after high school has finished. And it turns out that Lucky isn't as bad as she thought he was. Or he's just changed. Like, it's just a classic. They used to not really think much of each other. Something happened. Now they kind of like each other. And romance blooms. Can't remember if I mentioned that was November the 10th. November the 24th is one you've probably heard about. And that is Ready Player 2. Ready Player 1 is on my shelf somewhere. I can't find it. Where are we? Hello. Come out to me. There it is. So Ernest Cline, when I first read Ready Player 1, I wasn't well impressed. I admired what he tried to do, but I just don't think he pulled it off. But then I saw the movie. The movie was crap. The movie was so different to the book. I hated it so much that the book seemed good. So I put it back on my shelf, and then it turns out book number 2 is coming out. I have no idea if it's going to be a better writing style. I'm just picking it up out of sheer curiosity. Literally, the blurb says nothing except it's the sequel to Ready Player 1. So if you're unfamiliar, quick rundown. You have this world, you have people in VR and they become characters in said world and go on quests to find things. At least that's what happened in this one. I don't know how they're going to make a book 2 because this to me seemed like a whole wrapped up story. So I am just hella curious. And that's it for November. So rolling into December, the festive season. Everyone who's in the northern hemisphere with their blankets and their cup of coffees and or should I say hot chocolates, cuddled up in front of the fire keeping warm. I'm kind of jealous. That's how I grew up, you know, but in New Zealand we have summer over Christmas. So the reading vibe for me is probably a little bit different to everyone else. Others are possibly wanting to, you know, stay nice and cozy, but me, I'm out there potentially getting sunburn because I can never put on enough sunscreen. But anyway, book chat. The first book I have that's coming out in December, in fact December the 1st, is How to Fail at Flirting. Again, trashy. Well, I'm not labeling it trashy because I'm not saying it's bad. I haven't read it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying one of those kind of books that you will possibly merge into lots of other books because it's a similar kind of vibe. An adult contemporary romance. Anyway, what's it about? I fell into the trap again of the teaching, of the teaching career path character. We have Naya. She's teaching. She's stressed. She's essentially facing a failing department at her university. She's a professor. And then one night, her girlfriends and her go out and they're like, oh, let loose, dance, drink, be a young woman in an adult world for once without all the stress, which is a direct oxymoron. You cannot be an adult without stress. You get what I mean? Anyway, she goes out, she runs into this guy, classic hot guy stereotype, and oh my gosh, does she risk everything to follow the love of her life? Or does she focus on making her career work? I mean, why a girl can't have both? I don't know, but I'm still wanting to read this. Then on the same day, but kind of like an opposite, is What She Found in the Woods by Josephine Angelini. This is a young adult mystery thriller. I think it's the only thriller I have on my list. Let me know. I'm on the lookout for more good thrillers, so drop like a title or a link below if you know of any exciting upcoming thriller releases, but this is the one I've got. Honestly, the blurb is 4 sentences, so I feel like it's just easier to read this. Running from a scandal at her New York private school, Magdalena heads to her family home to recover under the radar. Over-medicated and under-confident, she's fearful she'll never escape her past until she meets Beau out hiking. Wild, gorgeous, free. He makes her believe she might be able to move on, but when a mutilated body is discovered in the woods, Magdalena realizes she can't trust anyone, not even herself. I'm just really interested in this Beau fella. I want to know his deal. Like, yo, are you like a nice hippie or a creepy hippie? What kind of hippie are you, Beau? From here, we move on to the Chanel sisters. This is a December 29th release, and as you might have guessed from the title and the cover, it follows the Chanel sisters. So we follow the sisters, Antoinette and Gabrielle Coco Chanel, and it sounds like their upbringing hasn't been the greatest, and this is historical fiction. I do need to look into it more to figure out if this is meant to be semi-autobiographical. Like, at this point, I don't even know if Coco Chanel has a sister. I mean, I'm guessing she does, but just a heads up, not sure if it's meant to be somewhat realistic based on truth, but sounds like they weren't raised in the most loving or financially stable home. They'd grown up with the nuns after being abandoned at a young age, and essentially when they leave, they aim high. They become, I mean, the figure that you imagine when you hear the name Coco Chanel. The reason I picked this one up is because I just finished The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and quite enjoyed it. I'll leave my link to my What the Hype video for that. I quite enjoyed it, more than I thought I would, following a supposed like famous figure. So I thought this is like a similar sister book to that, so that's why it's on my list. We then have, though, the last book on my list, which is another 29th of December release, and is also historical fiction, actually, and it's called When the Apricots Bloom. I was just drawn in by the orange of the cover, and then I read the blurb, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm down for that. So there's 3 points of views, all of them kind of telling the story, inspired by the author's experiences living during Saddam Hussein's rule in Iraq. How do you say it, by the way? I've had lots of debate about how to say that country's name. I say Iraq. Do I? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. Pretty sure I'm not just changing it for this video. Anyway, it's a story about betrayal, about friends coming out of secret interrogations, and just entering that whole world of a real political time, and all of the heartbreak, danger, but also good memories that come out of a situation like that for people. So ending it on a little bit of an intense note, but I think it's really important to keep trying to get that representation across. So with that being said, if you think I've missed any key books that I really need to have on my list, leave them down below. I do apologise for any lighting changes. I do work with natural light and the window is right here. With all that being said and done, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below, and enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures. I will see you in the next video. Bye.